say that there are two complex things about computer science, right? Naming things and cache invalidation. If you are on Twitter, you'll see lots of variation of that statement. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think we're missing one big thing, and that is maintaining code bases over time. I think that's a huge, difficult problem. So in the past, we've had tools to help us get started easily, but the issue is how do you stay evergreen and force consistency over time as your software evolves? So to do this, that's where NX comes into play. 1 second.
So the images do not go through, and I don't know why.
Oh,
Yes.
all right, we're working.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So to solve this problem of maintaining your code base over time and having the need or not having to rewrite your entire code base, the solution for that is NX. So NX by Narwhal is a powerful build system with monorepo support. We at Rosa believe that NX is a solution to solve these problems for maintaining your code base over time and keeping it organized. So hi, I'm Liza. I'm a software engineer at Rosa, and this is Antoine, CTO and co-founder of Rosa.
So I hope you enjoy the pictures because, yeah, they don't go through. I don't know why. I'm sorry about that. Good. So at Rosa, we want to solve a big problem with this, which is health. So here in Europe, we are best because we do not go bankrupt when we are sick. Yet, healthcare is still a big problem. And even if you think about something as simple as booking an appointment, it can give a lot of mental load to people because they have to think about, hey, should I call that doctor? Should I go online on that specific platform to book an appointment to my dentist? Now imagine that we could have, so we're going to do it like that, I think. Now, imagine that we could have, does it work? Yes. So imagine that we could have one application in which you could have everything in there. Your appointment, your care team, everything. But before we can ship such an app, we need to build traction. And to build traction, Rosa decided to create an online booking platform. So today you can go on rosa.be and search, find, and book health professionals. But we have a lot of applications in the end. We have professional applications that are used by private practices, but we also have some applications that are deployed at hospitals. We have applications that are used by patients and really different kind of stuff. But this is kind of the business side, Liza. Can you explain us how it works from a technical point of view? How do we keep that up all together?
Yeah, sure. So at Rosa, we use many different technologies. We have multiple front ends that need to communicate with our back ends. So we need to keep our code base organized because we always want to perform for our health professionals and doctors and patients. So to do this, we use NX at our core. So NX is a smart, fast, and extensible build system. It's smart and fast because it is able to understand your code base and analyze its dependencies with graph visualizations. It also allows you to share code between your applications. It generates code for you, has automatic migrations, and it allows tasks to be run only for affected apps. It is also extensible, meaning that you're not limited to what technology you want to use with NX. That is something that Antoine's going to show you a little bit later.
So there's probably one really complex thing about computer science is getting the slides right on the screen. But another thing is the internet never forgets. And so if you start to search about NX, you will see stuff like Fortune 500. You will see extensions for Angular. But is that a myth, Liza?
Yeah. I mean, you can use NX with any framework you want, not just Angular. And you don't have to be a big corporation. You can be small or large. That doesn't matter.
So what about the monorepo part of it?
Yeah, so also NX is very customizable. When you start your workspace, you can use lots of different presets or plugins. So you can use a package-based monorepo or integrated repo or a standalone app. So it's very customizable for your needs.
That's cool. What about other ecosystems? What about things outside of TypeScript and JavaScript?
Yeah, this is no problem too. NX doesn't care, what you use to build in your workspace. So that's the power of NX.
Cool. So even .NET, even Kotlin, you can use NX with all of that. But is that easy, Liza? Is that simple to start with?
Yeah, it's actually very simple, which I can show you. So there are many ways to get started with your workspace. And you can see we have one of the commands up here to get your workspace created. It's one command, and then you can also set a prefix to configure your app if you wanted a standalone React app, Angular, Nest, the list goes on. You can even use Quick now.
Wait. Did you mention Quick?
Yeah,
Big fan
sure did,
here.
yeah.
Maybe you could show some live demo about how to use NX and Quick together.
Yeah, I definitely can. So recently there's a plugin, Quick NX, that allows you to create quick applications within NX. So I already went ahead and ran the workspace for you. Let me make this a little larger. Okay, cool. So I created the workspace, which is called NX Logs Quick. And right away, you can see that all the code is generated for you, and that is configured to whatever preset you use. So normally there's going to be an apps folder and also a libs folder. So apps are obviously all your applications that you create. So I went ahead and just started adding apps to this folder. The libs folder are going to be your shared libraries that you want to use within the apps. So I'm going to show you some of the important things of this Quick NX plugin. So if we go into app 1, I'm going to show you the vconfig. One of the most important things of this plugin is the Quick NX v. This is added in your app, and this is the glue between Quick and NX, and this is where all the magic happens. Now, if you go up to the project file, you're going to see all of NX generators that they have built for you. So you can see you can build the app, serve it, test it, all built with NX generators. So for example, building a quick app, NX will take that, help you out and build the client and server for you. And I'm going to show you just what the apps we have. Start by building the first app, serving it for you. So I'm going to run npx NX serve app 1. All right, so this is app 1. It's just one of the app from the start. We're using a custom header library with the BJS logo, and then we also have our own custom footer at the bottom. But what if you want to visualize your entire workspace? And that's one of the powers of NX is its graph visualizations. Well, you can run npx NX graph, or you can also use the NX console. So this is built into your editor, and quickly here you can see all the projects that are created in your workspace. We have 2 applications, and then we also have 2 libraries created. You can see that app 1 and app 2 both use the shared header library, and then you can see that app 1 only has the footer library. So what happens when you make a change to this header library? Well, I can show you. So let's open up the header component in the library, make a small change. And what we're going to do is run the affected command from NX. We're going to build, and let's see what happens. So we can see right away that it's smart because it knows what apps need to use this header component. So it's going to go ahead and build app 1 and app 2. But now what's going to happen when you try to make a change to the footer component? So to do that, let's open up the footer file, make a small change here, and then we're going to run the same command. You can see this time it only builds app 1. So you know right away that NX is smart enough to know your code base and know that only app 1 needs to change when you make any changes to the footer. And you can use affected not just with build, but you can use it with test and linting, which is why NX is so fast, because it knows which tasks to run on certain apps and libraries. The next thing I want to show you are migrations. So if I open up the package.json file for you guys, you can see here all the dependencies for your apps are located in this file. So right now it is using an older version of Quick at version 1, and we want to update to the most recent version. To do that, all we need to run is one command, which is nx migrate quick nx. And then you can see quickly it's going to fetch the latest version, which is quick nx 103, and then apply those updates to your package file. So you're going to see that already pulls in what needs to be updated, so you can just run npm install and update your code base. But migrations is much more than just updating numbers and packages. It can be used for many things in your code base. If there are any breaking changes, you can leverage NX migrations to update those packages and libraries for you, so it can update your code. It can also, we were talking with Mikhail earlier about Lyra that we use, and that we want to migrate to the newest.
So imagine now with the Lyra library and what Mikhail is building today with Orama Search, instead of just trying to find and replace all the APIs and all the function calls, etc., imagine that you could simply run a migration like npx nx migrate Lyra search or Amora search, and then you literally just manipulate your code by going through the AST and changing that AST to the new version that you want to build. So literally, the most underrated feature of NX is probably migrations. So it is not only about just bumping a package number or package version in your package.json. It can do a lot more.
Yeah. And you're probably going to ask about speed, because when you saw in the workspace mostly TypeScript, and what about performance issues? So that's also not an issue for NX. They're always focused on improving speed and performance, even if it's just milliseconds. They recently just replaced their file hasher for their cloud computation from Git to Rust to improve speed. And that's just, and you don't have to wait for NX also. With your workspace, if you want to add enhancements, you can also do that with your build. So for example, you can use the latest and greatest RS pack in your NX workspace, which is the Rust-based JavaScript bundler.
That looks pretty cool. So beyond migration, you do have like extensibility. So as Liza said, you can have any plugin. You can implement different plugins to hook into NX, and then that's how you can have .NET or Kotlin or anything into NX. Now, when you're using, for example, NX for your React application, at some point, as soon as the team from ByteDance, the web infra team from ByteDance releases a REST pack, on the same day, NX can support and provide a plugin for a pack, and you can start to use it. And so the day we saw that announcement, we were quite excited because we were trying to improve our build time and our CI time. And so we asked ourselves the question, but RSPack is just out now. It supports React applications, but could we use RSPack to speed up our build system also for backend applications? And at Rosa, we have two types of backend applications, or we basically have mostly Nest.js applications, but we do, thank you, Liza. But we do ship them or deploy them using two different techniques. We use the serverless framework to deploy to Lambdas, and we use Docker images that we deploy on ECS, on the AWS. And so the question is, in those cases, could we use RSPack to speed up things? Because as Liza said, it is usually easy to start. Okay, you start, everything is fast, okay? And then progressively you add more and more stuff, and then the system breaks. And that's exactly what happened here. So we used Webpack together with serverless to publish a serverless stack onto AWS. And so you have an API gateway, and then that API gateway basically sends the request to different Lambda functions. And here, particularly, I'm talking about an app that is used by our staff to perform actions on our, I would say, database. And so initially, you have just one action. Okay, customer support wants to do X. And then progressively, as we continue to add more features, we have more and more Lambdas, up to the point where your code grows, the number of dependencies you dependent on increases, and then you reach a hard limit, and you can't deploy any longer because your entire zip file that you want to publish on your Lambda is too big. And the reason is the node modules. Node modules are the heaviest objects in the universe. And so as you start to pull in more node modules, more dependencies, you start to have more and more stuff to deploy. Let's try to understand what really happens behind the scene. So let's try to understand how serverless and Webpack work, because if we want to optimize something, we need to understand how it works. So the idea is quite simple with serverless. And the first step, it happens in 4 steps. The first step is literally just Webpack bundling your code. The second step is going through all your files, all your bundle, and understanding what are the dependencies, extracting them, creating a package JSON, and then running npmi or yarn install, whatever you want to do. The third step is to add layers to your Lambda, and then you zip the entire thing, and then you can try to deploy. And what serverless really recommend you is you can leave a choice up to you is to decide whether you want to package all your Lambda function into one zip file, or if you want to package each and every Lambda into its own zip file. And when you compare both, it is way faster to package the entire stack together, but then you have one large zip, and you hit that limit about the size. If you go down the road of packaging each function individually, then you have multiple small zip files, but it is super, super slow. At some point, we hit literally a wall where we had to pick between one of these two poisons. Either we couldn't deploy, or we had to wait for 16 minutes for the build to finish. That is kind of crazy, right? Now, if we take a step back and think about the size issue, the question we asked ourselves was, is it only a problem because we deploy Lambda? And in fact, when you think about how to manage node dependencies in production, even when you have a Docker image, it is becoming a problem. Because you have your Alpine or a distroless image, and you start to add your stuff into there, okay? And usually you have like an image that is typically between 100 megabytes and maybe 200 megabytes for the biggest one as a base, and then you add your code. But as you add your code, you also bring all the NPM dependencies. And we measured that for some of our apps, we were adding 500 megabytes of node modules. And so if you look into the internet, and you will find some advice on how to deal with that. No, can I zoom in or not? Let me try to at least do that. Okay, so if you can read this, it's literally saying, hey, I'm going to have a multi-stage build, and in the build, what I'm going to do is to yarn install, yarn build, or npmi, and then I'm going to clean up the node modules by using node prune. I'm going to clean up some of the targets that were shipped by my dependencies. I don't use RxJS, let's remove it. But this is kind of crazy, right? You basically are fighting against a system. You do npmi into your Docker image, and then you are required to clean things up. That should be the job of a bundler. There should be a better way to do that. Let's bundle all the things, right? So one thing you want to stop doing when you are building for production using Webpack or RSpec is to have external dependencies. What these lines of code tell Webpack or RSpec is basically, hey, every time you see a require that is outside of your code base that hits the known modules, ignore it, I'm going to provide it for you later. And providing for you later means running npmi at some point during your SLS package or within Docker with npmi. Liza, how can we do that? How can we configure Webpack or RSpec into an X?
Yeah. All right, so what I showed you earlier is that NX is fully customizable. So you can use RSpec as a drop-in replacement for Webpack, and you can add it in the targets, what I showed you earlier in the project file. So with the executors of building, you can replace Webpack and right away just put in the RSpec config. Cool. And then when you do this, don't forget, you don't want to be finding and replacing all of your code where you need to replace Webpack. Use a migration instead. This will save time for you, make your lives a lot easier. So the NX plugin takes care of all of the heavy lifting. And you can fully customize this plugin when you use RSpec, and you can add to the config to meet your code base needs.
There are two things you need to be careful about, two complex things about bundling all your dependencies. And those are the native dependencies and the lazy loaded modules. So when you have native dependencies, it basically means that you have binaries that were compiled for a specific architecture. And so if you want to bundle them directly into your code that you will ship onto Lambdas or that you will ship onto a Docker image, you need to make sure that the platform on which you build and the platform on which you deploy are the same. Otherwise, it will not work. It will try to use binaries for Graviton while you build for x86. With the lady modules, you can read more on the internet with the issue that was mentioned here. There are some tips and tricks on how to deal with them. So it's always tough to share numbers, right? So I'm going to share some bold numbers here. We had a big issue, and we literally had an app that was taking 10 plus more minutes to build. And we brought that down to 13 seconds. This is not only the magic of RSpec. We did a lot to go from those 10 plus minutes towards those 13 seconds. So because we hit that zip size limit for Lambda, we had to bundle each of the functions of a serverless stack individually, which meant that if we had 16 functions or 20 functions in that serverless stack, we had to repeat the npmi operation all over again. So if your npmi takes like 50 seconds, you do 16 times your 50 seconds, and that's how you can reach some crazy numbers, such as 10 plus minutes to build a serverless stack app. Now, with RSpec, and because we bundled everything, then it is just a matter of how fast can your bundle go through all your code and bundle all your dependencies. And with RSpec, this can be super, super fast. Now, to be fair, we should only compare between RSpec and Webpack and do the exact same thing. Turns out it's not that easy, because sometimes, in the case of Webpack, you have so many functions that in the end, the operation of bundling everything into a file means that Webpack needs to go and extract the dependencies from the known modules for each and every function. And that operation will be slow if you have many functions. So in the case of Webpack, there is a sweet spot where Webpack bundling all your dependencies for you is faster. And if you go above that, then the npmi approach will be faster. Okay, so that's why you can't always compare apples to apples when you measure the transition from Webpack to RSPack. We confirmed the numbers of a 10-fold improvement or 5-fold improvement, and sometimes we even measured like 20-fold improvements. And that is a good news to know that using RSPack, you can drastically improve your build time, your build time for your node backends. Because it not only means that your build is faster, but your Docker images are much, much smaller, which means that your CI needing to pull your images or push your images to publish them will be faster. It will be faster to boot up in production too. When you think about that, it basically, what it means is that we could bring like a super slow build step towards something that was super fast. But there's more to that when it comes to optimizing a CI system. And maybe you can tell us more about how you can manage all those tasks that you need to perform and how NX can help with that.
Yeah, definitely. So you can spend time optimizing your overall CI time. So for example, on the left are trying to take tasks, split them into chunks so that we're trying to make the slowest possible tasks. But you can see if one takes only 1 or 2 minutes and the other is 11 minutes, your CI is only going to be as fast as its slowest build. So it really doesn't matter about optimizing those smaller pieces when it's really just going to use the longest one. So to solve this, you can actually do this with NX Cloud features. So let's see. Cool, okay. So there's a SaaS offering that NX has with its cloud with distributed task execution. So this can solve all your problems with trying to make a faster CI. It will take your tasks and it will split them with however many agents you want, and then it will run them in parallel, it'll run them in the correct order. And this will take care of having, improving all of the speed and performance on your CI/CD pipeline.
So here, what Liza showed you earlier was the dependency graph between your apps and all libraries. But NX also has a concept of a task graph, and that is what it uses here, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you can see here it's going to be using all the tasks for affected, which I was showing you earlier. And since it looks at the tasks, it's able to distribute them evenly and split them into low-level tasks throughout the agents.
That's amazing.
So there are many technologies in the open source community, and as you face problems with your software, you can always rely on NX to have your back. We highly recommend adapting NX to your workspace. It will make your lives easier. So thank you.